Last night was an abysmal dumpster fire with injuries, bad footballs, and not a lot of fun on that Monday Night Football doubleheader. So let's cleanse the palate a little bit. Let's take it nice and slow. Let's relax. Let's look back. Let's look at the positives. Of course, that means the 2023 best ball season. This is going to be the new thing that I do on Tuesdays here. We're going to move the Spags rankings to Wednesdays, get all the data in to do those. On Tuesdays, though, this is going to be your spot where I know we had a lot of people who've watched the drafts this entire offseason, of course, on Splash Play as well as the streams. I did on Peach Channel as well as across around the industry. But we're going to talk best ball today. You can vent. You can give your player takes. You can give your victory laps, whatever you want to do. We're going to go through my portfolio on DraftKings, on Underdog, on Drafters. We're going to find what looks good. We're going to find what looks bad. We're, of course, going to talk about it all as we go. As always, shouts to chat, GMs, and listen to Mo Bamba on repeat, trying to get my head ready for this. Thank you. I'm going to try my best to bring it here, though I'm already realizing I put this Fantasy Pros thing on the wrong window, so we'll have to change that around in a second here. But let's look at the top 10 performing QBs according to half-point PPR. Of course, Underdog is the half-point PPR, DraftKings full-point PPR, so it's going to be a little bit different there, especially with the bonuses. Top performing QB through 2 weeks, looking like Kirk Cousins, a 23-point average for him. Number 2, Jordan Love. So these are two guys I have a lot of, I feel good about. Number 3 is a guy I don't have a lot of, Justin Herbert, 21.5-point average for him. Mahomes at number 4 at 21.4. Point being, I don't know that I need to read the whole top 10. We do have Russell Wilson, Tua, Mac Jones, my boy AR, my beautiful big boy at QB8, despite being injured for 3/4 of week 2. Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones. So really flat scoring. That's the thing that I think stands out here at QB, which is part of why I think we're going to see my Underdog teams. A lot of those are doing well. Spags Stacks videos teams doing particularly well because it was just about stacking. It was just about correlating. It was just about getting these batches of players together that the QB can rise along with the tide with. And I think there's no better example of that than Kirk Cousins, who, of course, 2 good weeks from Justin Jefferson, 2 good weeks from Jordan Addison, 1 good week from TJ Hockenson. That's basically enough to make Kirk Cousins the number 1 QB. So if you are one of those people out there that has wondered about stacking, that has thought, I shouldn't stack, everybody else is stacking, this is why you stack. This is why this happens. This is why this works. Kirk go chains. Yes. Big bang boom to my fellow squirters. Is it still impossible to see exposures on DK? As far as I know, yes. You could use one of the spike week tools, something like that, to get different and see it correctly. Get different from DraftKings UX, where they don't want you to see your exposures. Subspag, shouts to the chat. Appreciate all you guys being here. Talk about the running backs real fast. Top 10 running backs. Christian McCaffrey is the one that I think you really, and I mentioned this yesterday, I think if you took Jamar Chase, and I know it's early, it's 2 weeks in, I think if you took Jamar Chase, you have to start to feel some pangs of regret for Christian McCaffrey, where Justin Jefferson is showing the floor and the ceiling every week so far. Jamar Chase is just showing the floor. When you just see that floor and you see Christian McCaffrey going off, you see Tyreek going off, you see all that, it does feel like McCaffrey is the one player here where if this usage continues up, this is one of the things that I have to take an L on, where I thought Elijah Mitchell was going to come into that same role that he had in the 2022 season. That has not been the case so far. Certainly can change over the next few months. All it takes is a calf strain for McCaffrey, or just them thinking, you know what, this team is good to go. Let's get Mitchell in the mix a little bit more, and let's see if we could rest CMC a little bit more in game. But right now, looking at him, looking at this average 21 points per game, hard to ignore Christian McCaffrey being worth the number 2 overall pick, if not the number 1 overall pick, if you are a wide receiver fader, of course, as I am not. Other top running backs, Brian Robinson. Kyron Williams is the one that I know we talked about on the stream towards the end. I ended up getting a lot of him on DraftKings. My top drafters team, which is a number 350, I believe, or top 350 amidst all of those drafters teams. Kyron Williams is driving that one. I don't know how this can continue. I really continue to be baffled by the Rams' success. Of course, if they get results against the Niners, I think we have to adjust our priors a little bit. Next week, they'll be playing on Monday Night Football against the Bengals. Kyron Williams, though, 19.7-point average. This is why, guys, this is why I did think zero RB was viable. And it turned out to be guys that I didn't have enough of. Brian Robinson, Kyron Williams, Raheem Mostert. Saquon goes down. Algier is still hanging along in the top 10. Montgomery, of course, hurt now. You can also see, too, guys that are hurt. Saquon going to be out at least 3 weeks, it looks like, if not longer, with that potential high ankle sprain for him. That doesn't look great. Montgomery going to be out with a thigh issue. Aaron Jones out with a hamstring right now. A lot of injuries racking up early at running back that I do think make a zero RB portfolio look good. That said, if I'm going to point out guys I regret not getting enough of, it's CMC, it's Pollard, and Bijan I'm close to the field on, but not quite all the way there. We never see Chubb again. That's tough. Yeah, we got to give the shout out to Nick Chubb. As I talked about in this offseason, there were two running backs that I really trusted with my life at the back end of the first round. And I don't like running backs, but Nick Chubb, Bijan Robinson, those are the two that I said in every stream that I think you want some exposure to those guys. Nick Chubb looked fantastic yesterday. Like, he was really getting yards that were not there on the field. He made it work for himself. It bums me out because I know everybody now, the thing to do has been to fillet Nick Chubb, talk about how undervalued he is, how underrated he is, and all that stuff. And it also crushed me because I had 93% Nick Chubb on that slate, which was just the worst slate ever. I could not have lost more money on yesterday's slate. It is very painful with that and Jamal Williams going out. Either way, though, Nick Chubb is just so great, and I think it bums me out because he is 27 years old. That knee issue, maybe he comes back, but the best case for him to come back is to be, I think, a 10 touchback at best. So it's tough for Nick Chubb. Like, you really might not see him play again. The guy's got the heart of a lion. The guy's got all the will in the world. But I think that's one where even me as somebody that really goes like, oh, running back's too risky, like just go draft him later, draft a bunch of them. I hate seeing guys like that go down because he's truly special. So shout out to Nick Chubb, of course, big splash play viewer, as always. Top wide receivers here. Tyreek Hill looking fantastic. This is standard scoring. Let's make sure it's half PPR. 25.8 point average for Tyreek. Again, another guy who could take over Jamar Chase. I don't know if that was the right move for most people out there, but I did feel comfortable getting more Tyreek as a result of where I was drafting on these boards. Of course, the random number generator did not give me a lot of 102s on DraftKings or Underdog throughout the course of the year. Mike Evans is the big surprise here. I really was one of those people that was throwing dirt on Tampa Bay. I think what I kind of underrated was something that I've landed on is I've touted Mike Williams the last 2 weeks for the actual in-week DFS stuff, just how great he is downfield and how much Baker Mayfield just wants to sling. Like we talk about historically, Johnny Manziel, the guy who I think stands out, another Cleveland Browns washout, who was just like, this guy just goes out there, he plays ball, he gets it downfield. Baker is a better version of what we wanted Johnny Manziel to be, where he just forces the ball downfield. I think it's going to run into some tougher matchups as we go. Again, faced really easy matchups these first 2 weeks of the year against Minnesota and Chicago team that is not very live to, in terms of what they do defensively. But I think Mike Evans is still a guy that's got some boom bust potential week after week. The usage has been fantastic. He deserves to be top receiver right now. He's a guy I'm under the field on in my portfolio because I didn't like the Bucs. That drives me nuts, but you got to give him his flowers here, especially playing without a contract extension too. He is playing for real. And frankly, the Bucs are probably too good to trade him, but he deserves to get traded to somebody good. And I know people love the Chiefs. You'd be a fantastic Chief. Absolutely. On my Chubb, the only Chubb I want to talk about is at half mass. We tune in the splash play. Shout out Tyler. Of course, shout out to the Squirt Squad. Of course, appreciate all you guys hanging out here with me as we go to this process in season. Again, tomorrow, if you're here for the Spags rankings, have no fear. Tomorrow we will strap in and I'll go as long as I have to rank every QB, every running back, every receiver, every tight end. We'll do that live on the show tomorrow. Justin Jefferson, number 4. Keenan Allen, number 5. Devontae Smith, number 6. Nico Collins, number 7. This is another big regret of mine so far. Nico, a guy that I've talked about who I just didn't like quite as much as some of the other Texans receivers. Got a good amount of Tank Dell. Got a good amount of John Mechie, who it appears is just not involved enough to even have upside unless, again, Robert Woods goes down. That's kind of the key linchpin there. But I believed in CJ Stroud. As I've talked about on the stream since January, 2 QBs I liked a lot in the rookie class. CJ Stroud, number 1 as a pocket passer. And of course, AR, the total package, the Greek god that he is, the rushing upside, all of that. Still believe that firmly. But CJ Stroud, I even said on this fucking stream, CJ Stroud is going to create value for these pass catchers to make them look better than they are. And yet I didn't take Nico Collins nearly enough. I think I'm at 6% Nico on both sites, maybe a little bit more on DraftKings. I can't see my exposures, so I don't know. But Nico, to me, feels like a tremendous miss and one that I don't see going away. When I looked at the numbers after week 1, the target count, the air yard share, how he was being targeted, how effective he was when he's getting targeted, he is a different player than he's been in the last few years. So if you can get Nico in a league, I would do it. There's going to be tougher matchups than he's faced in these first 2 weeks. The Indianapolis one, I think, was pretty hospitable for him, but still, like, he is a guy that's probably a top 20 receiver by the end of the year. And I think it's all going to be on the back of CJ Stroud looking great. So kudos to him with what he's done. Brandon Ayuk had a tough week too. That makes sense. So he'd come down. Stephon Diggs, also tough week too, but still the ceiling is there. No issue with him in my portfolio. Josh Reynolds, though, he's someone I think we have to highlight here. I do think the thesis of Amon-Ra St. Brown was correct. Amon-Ra, though, did potentially hurt his toe in that last game, so we'll see. Hopefully he's still good to go. Turf toe, one of the worst injuries to have for a football player, though. We have seen guys like Terry McLaurin come back a little bit faster than you'd expect, but in season, though, that could be an injury that, if it is bad, it could take him out for a few weeks. If he is out, though, Josh Reynolds, I think part of the thesis of Amon-Ra St. Brown is that all the targets are going to concentrate for him. He was going to be so great. Josh Reynolds has been better than I think Jameson Williams would be on a every snap basis, where he's a guy that can get you the short targets. He's a guy that can get you some red zone targets, some end zone targets. Reynolds looks really good out there, and this has been a thing that I've beaten the drum of, again, ironically, for literal years, going on the ship chasing Thanksgiving show, touting Josh Reynolds and being laughed in my face as he went off to have a tournament winning day that day. I still didn't draft enough Josh Reynolds. I didn't buy in on the thesis of him enough, and I'm really impressed with what he's done so far. I think the numbers will bear out when he rank him tomorrow. He's going to get hurt when Jameson Williams comes back in, but with how he's playing right now, it does feel like he's actually hurting Amon-Ra, hurting Laporta, hurting Gibbs, really, just with how functional he's been in the past game. So Josh Reynolds, I think, is somebody you definitely have to highlight. Stroud plus Houston receivers, my third highest owned stacks. That's looking good. I mean, look, I've got a lot of Stroud. I do not have enough Nico. That is the one thing I know for sure in my portfolio. Half point PPR here. TJ Hawkinson is a star, but tight end is as ugly as it could possibly be. Nobody has scored more than 30 points in the position so far, but we got TJ Hawkinson, Hunter Henry, Hayden Hurst, late tight ends looking good, though not the rookies, unfortunately. Evan Ingram, Darren Waller, Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas makes it in at number 6. That's how bad tight end is right now in terms of the averages. Sam Laporta, Kylan Granson, Zach Ertz, and Mark Andrews, who played one game, but it's ugly, man. Tight end. I did believe a lot in late tight ends being the way to go. Also believed a lot in Mark Andrews. I think from how this is looking so far, I'm not feeling any pangs of regret, really. I have enough Hawkinson as part of my Kirk stacks, so that feels okay. But definitely something with tight end where I do expect this to rise a little bit throughout the year, especially if the rookies get better. But for now, like Musgrave, Laporta, the bet on those guys, Michael Mayer, who hasn't done much yet, the bet on those guys is more so that they're going to keep you afloat amidst the dog shit tight end position. I don't know that there are late tight ends besides Hunter Henry who are looking like they can be outliers. So Hunter Henry, if you drafted him, kudos to you. Very wise pick. I think the signal was there in terms of the usage of Mike Gesicki, him getting hurt in camp as well, him playing mostly out of the slot in camp in the preseason. I think that was something where we should have taken more signal, or if you did, I didn't take enough of. So Hunter Henry, I think, if not a skeleton key, certainly a guy that's looking good with this early position for him. All right, let's go. Let's go look at my actual portfolio. It's in a different window because I'm an idiot. Let's go over there. Here we go. Here's my contests. All right, we'll go to Underdog first. So we have all of the things that I've drafted on stream here, as well as all the head-to-heads, all of that. And let's see what we got. They're all separated weirdly. We'll look at BBM. Actually, you know what? I think the best team I have, real fast, I believe it's in the Golden, which is, of course, the one that you only win if you advance at the end and beat everybody. So only first place wins money in this one. My team here, though, has scored 330 points, which is not the case. I think my high is 285 for anything else. And we'll show you guys the highest scoring team I have so far. My team in the Golden, which is, again, one person wins it all. Tua at QB. Derek Carr has not contributed any points yet. Saquon, who's hurt now. Travis Etienne, who was much less effective in week 2. Brian Robinson looking great. Elijah Mitchell not involved. Mostert looked great in week 2. Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, Jahan Dotson, Michael Thomas, Rondale Moore, Isaiah Hodgins, and then Terrace Marshall, Puka Nacua. How many Puka Nacua entries are in the Golden? Probably not many. Mark Andrews here, Juwan Johnson. Solid team that I think, again, the main thing here, the stacking, the correlating, that's still the parts that I think were key for me in every draft I did, as you guys saw on stream. And that's the parts that I think are driving the success of a lot of this stuff. So I'm glad to see it. You're to send love and click the like button. I love you, bro. Got to watch later. Let's go Buffalo and the 0-2 Chargers. The Chargers are probably due for better days, but honestly, man, I like what they did in that game in terms of not playing into the strength of Tennessee, that run defense. They didn't feed Josh Kelly a lot in that one, but man, I like just snake-bitten team. If there ever was one, that's the Chargers. They could have everything go right. They can have things looking better. Justin Herbert attacking downfield, and they still blow a game to go in 0-2. It's just brutal. 1% Chubb, 13% Ford, looking good. Sad to see on the field, though. Yeah, I was at 4% Chubb, 12% Ford in terms of best ball mania. So you gain whatever on that. I still would rather have Nick Chubb out there. I just think it's more fun. But obviously, Jerome Ford going to look good. Pierre Strong, if you drafted him at all at any point in this offseason, those bags are not dead. He got some goal line carries in yesterday's game, was involved enough, and I do think he'll probably take a little bit off the table there, but it's probably Jerome Ford's backfield. So it comes down to, can Deshaun Watson keep that afloat? I don't know. Some of the teams, I think my best team in Best Ball Mania, I believe I remember offhand because I had to look up these scores on my phone to make sure I had them because they do not appear here on the screen. this is my best team overall. And unfortunately, this is the type of team that I did not draft much of. Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson at QB, at running back, Tony Pollard and Derrick Henry. So full running back piggy for me. That's looking good right now. Of course, Derrick Henry, we'll see if he holds up over the course of the year. Same thing for Tony Pollard. But Tony Pollard's red zone work has been too hard to ignore. Javonte Williams added points, I believe, in week 1, or maybe in the flex. Zach Charbonnet, Chase Brown, those guys have done nothing yet. We have Jefferson, Ayuk again. George Pickens, the biggest victory lap for him. We have not seen Christian Watson out there, but George Pickens looking like a man possessed in that game yesterday. We saw a hint of the ceiling. If he can catch some more of those targets, we're going to see a real ceiling from him. So that's one that makes me feel good. And that's honestly what got me thinking about I need to just do a best ball stream because DFS murdered me yesterday. But then I get George Pickens to look at in best ball, and that feels a lot better. Quentin Johnson looking like a dud so far, barely getting any snaps, barely getting any targets. Feels like he now needs an injury to get there, which sucks because at his ADP, I think he is going to hurt a lot of my 0RB teams that did go his way. Jacoby Myers, Tim Patrick coming along for the ride. Of course, would have been much better to draft Marvin Mims at this point. Marvin Mims, that's 20 fantasy points on 5 routes in that game. But no, we keep Tim Patrick on this team. Hockenson, Laporta, Musgrave. The thesis of elite tight end with 2 late rookie tight ends, I think looking pretty good. But that's it. Some of the other things we're advancing here. H2Hs, those are all my head-to-heads with Pete. Here's one where I am at first place. Pete's at 4th. I'm just taking this. I don't know what this lineup is. I don't know what Pete's is or what mine is. Joe Burrow underperforming in this one. Dameon Pierce. I really think one of my biggest pain points this year is that 0RB can absolutely win everything this year. I just don't think I got the right running backs. and that's very frustrating because I see these Chase Brown shares. I see this Kendre Miller shares. Kendre's live. He just needs to play next week and put something on the board. If Jamal Williams can't go, which old guy with a hamstring issue, got to think he's closer to not going than he is going. That said, I just don't have enough Kyren Williams. I don't have enough Kyren Williams. I have 2% Puka Nacua. That's not going to help that much. The field's at about 2.8% of him based on what we've seen from Underdog's data. So I do have some fears like Brian Robinson. I think I'm a little bit above the field on, but not enough. I have so much of these guys like Charbonnet, so much of these guys like Kendre Miller, A-Chain. Of course, A-Chain finally got on the field in week 2. I think that's the part that is going to be tilting for me as we go on, especially if Kyren continues to be this Christian McCaffrey-esque world beater. I think that's what is going to be very upsetting. I'll plant a flag for the thing that's going to upset me the most. That said, I do think the production level's out. Guys like A-Chain, guys like Miller, guys like Roshan even. What you're trying to benefit from is the late season chaos there. That's going to make these guys really sing in lineups. But to start the year, I'm happy with my advance rates. I'm at a 20% advance rate on Underdog, just under that on DraftKings with one less entry making it. So that looks good. For 0RB teams, you expect a low advance rate to begin. But I could be absolutely smashing right now if I had just gotten more Kyren Williams. And I don't think I was wrong to not be taking him in May, June, July. But once the reports started to come out late July and August about him being the pass down back, I should have gone to him more on Underdog instead of just on DraftKings. And I think that's one of the big mistakes for me. Got to think Cleveland brings in Hunt or Fat Lenny for a look. I don't think they really didn't like Hunt, so I don't think that's the case. It's possible. I guess Lenny could be a player. But with what Ford put on tape yesterday, why would you? Why would you do that? He broke the best run of his career. He looked as good as everything they've wanted him to be. Scored 2 touchdowns, I believe, in that game too. So, why would you bring in a back who's not as good just to take carries away from the guy that you've actually drafted and started to grow? I just don't think that makes sense. I think that's what people on Twitter want to happen always. Is Lenny going to go here? Is Hunt? And I don't think that's a for sure out. I think if anything, they might bring in a third string back to go with Strong, to go behind Strong. But even then, they have guys that they like who I think still would be available to bring up from the practice squad, like John Kelly. I don't think they're for sure a bet to get those guys. I would, if you're hedging on that, you're hoping that's your out. I don't think that's it. I think they would be more likely to get a Cam Akers, honestly, if anything. But even that, I think you got to see what Ford and Strong can do. Currently advancing 40% on teams on DK and Underdog. That's awesome. I was, none of these numbers really matter in week 2. For week 1, I had the same amount as CLN had there. So that's the tough part of the show is I have to also say, we're talking about the stuff with some enthusiasm. At the same token, though, it's so fucking early. A million things can go wrong, as we've seen with the running backs and how the situation has been so far. So I would not victory lap anything. I wouldn't get cozy. It's a long ride here, and literally for 15 more weeks before this actually matters. All right, Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins. What? No, no. What is this? Get out of here with this. Rashi Rice on this team. Anyway, we're looking pretty good here. Other teams that seem interesting to me. So a lot of teams I drafted on stream. I'm actually surprised by how many of the teams I drafted on stream are looking good so far. Like, this is a lot of Spags Stacks teams. Like, let's count it out. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I drafted 32 Spags Stacks teams on stream. 10 of them right now are advancing. That does not seem possible, but I think it does speak to what we did in that process, which was just creating stacks, not even being, not allowing any control really with the wheel spinning and me going, hey, I got to draft the Eagles this week. I think there was something to that process where it just forced me to get different, forced me to get outside my comfort zone, but still to build stacks out. So if that's the one thing from this early part here, again, can't read too much into 2 weeks, but just stacking guys and just stacking any team whenever it's possible. I cannot underrate enough how important stacks are, especially when I keep seeing fucking unstacked best ball teams floating around out there. Like, it's not it. It's not it. Nothing matters till week 14. Is Pierce suck or is it the O-line? I think Pierce sucks. I mean, I think Pierce, I talked about last year, just did not stand out analytically, was not getting more than the average running back in most situations. Certainly can avoid tackles and get there, but the O-line being bad doesn't help. But if you're a running back that does rely entirely on the O-line to create value for you, it's not always going to work out. If you're on the Eagles, if you're DeAndre Swift, like, yeah, you're pairing the stuff you've had inside of you all along with this really amazing O-line and opening up seas of lanes for you to go through. That's great. But for most running backs, you have to be able to create value for yourself. And I just don't think Pierce has that. But we'll see if Stroud keeps improving. That's going to open things up for Pierce too, whether the O-line is good or not. Spags Stacks made you stack undesirable teams, the key to best ball. That is also true. We stacked a lot of teams, and as I've talked about here a couple of years ago at Football Outsiders, Scott Sprout, who's now at FTN, did some research and basically dug into back tested a bunch of historical best ball teams. And what he found was basically that middle tier QBs with middle tier receivers, those guys outperforming their ADPs was the key driver of what makes for successful best ball portfolios. So I think that is something that I'm seeing now firsthand, even more so with what I did. And like, again, just a lot of teams here where Spags Stacks, Washington, we had KC with this one, but we have Mahomes. Mahomes is contributing points. Howell's not. So I guess honestly, the Howell part of this is not doing a whole lot for me. McLaurin hasn't made a lineup. Howell hasn't made a lineup, but one day they're gonna. And if they do, that's a nice lever to go along with Mahomes. So I think you are seeing the stacking there. This is an insane 4 QB build I made, apparently. Purdy, Stroud, Howell, Garoppolo have gotten usable games from Purdy and Stroud. Just 3 running backs. This one with this, I don't know what the fuck I was doing on this team. Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Terry McLaurin here. Got still a nice receiver room with this one. Zay Flowers contributing points. Michael Thomas contributing some. Tight ends looking terrible. The one thing that could bury a lot of my teams and probably could bury a lot of the teams out there is just the tight end play. Like, if you see Kelsey start to really put down hammer days, if you see Hockenson continue to put down hammer days, if you see Kelsey, and Andrews go off, that's going to hurt the elite tight end, or going to help the elite tight end teams and hurt these kind of shitty cobbled together tight end teams. But for right now, you really could cobble together tight end, cobble together running back, and have teams that look pretty good. And I think as well, the fact that my wide receiver rooms, I talked about, my big goal of almost every draft I was going into this year was to have the best wide receiver room, to leave with like 5 to 6 guys who are, elite-ish guys, or guys that would have in previous years, been an entire team's wide receiver room. I think I did that pretty well. I think I feel really good about that portion of things. Regular season wise, I think I only have one team that is currently advancing for the regular, or currently ranking in the regular season. And it was that Kirk team I already showed you, but we'll pull it up and do this process too. 283.52. There we go. Hunter Henry, the GOAT. I wish I had more Hunter Henry. I do not have a lot of Hunter Henry. So that is one that is looking tough for me. There we go. One team in 7,920th. Whatever. I got the regular season thing. Never what I'm playing for anyway, but would be nice to have a few more on the top 10,000. We don't have that. Hunter Henry saving my tight end portfolio. I don't see how that goes down. Like, I don't think you're necessarily getting, 15 to 18 fantasy point games every week, but I do think he's going to give you 5 to 12 most weeks. And that, at tight end could be enough. We're going to at some point see, the Evan Ingram spike weeks. We're going to see the Hockenson spike weeks we've already seen. We're going to see some of these guys have outlier days, especially the rookies too, I think, as they get a little bit more up to speed with how to handle the entire thing you have to do as a tight end. But Hunter Henry, I just don't see how he hurts you. So if you have Hunter Henry, obviously the ceiling's been great the first 2 weeks. Don't expect that. But I think he just keeps you alive throughout. So I feel pretty good about that if you would have Hunter Henry. Any other interesting teams here? Oh, the head-to-head teams. Let's count those out too. So out of the head-to-heads with Pete, I'm currently advancing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 out of, I believe we said 31 teams we had done together. So that would be... So currently advancing 26% of my head-to-heads versus Pete. I would have to go individually and look at all these to see where Pete's advancing. He's in third here, not that far behind, so certainly in the hunt. I think Pete and I are going to advance a team together. I think that would not shock me at all based on what I've seen here. He's not top in this one. Top 3. Pete just hovering around top 3 in all these ones that we share. Number 1 here. What's Pete's number 1 team? Dak and Russ, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, A-Chain, Roshan, Ford, Kelly. Wow, Pete got some nice late running backs on this one. Garrett Wilson, Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy. Receivers maybe lacking a little bit unless Marvin Mims can keep doing that. Kittle, Ferguson. Shout out Miami, Nez here saying nice early advance rates. Thank you, Nez, and congrats to Nez going to be competing for the first ever Underdog Fantasy Football Championship. That'll be exciting for Nez. I'm very happy to see one of the good guys out there doing good stuff. But yes, for a 0 RB portfolio, I cannot be mad at these advance rates, and you can see them all here. Any other interesting teams? Oh, one thing I will flag. I am shocked by my big board teams and how not good they are so far. Like, they're doing okay. Big board qualifying here, advancing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 out of 59, which I think is not going to be the rate here. 12 divided by 59. Oof. So that's a 5.5% advance rate. Did I do that math right? Hold on. 12. Hold on. I think I did this wrong. That can't be right. 12. I hope it's not right. No, 20% advance rate. Okay. And it's a 25% advance rate in this one. So I am under an advance rate on the big board. Still think I built some good teams. Like, you guys know from watching these videos all offseason that I was on a lot of these rookies. I think the overall construction is perhaps not making it work together as well as I would like. I know I did get a little bit less stacky in the big board because of the fact you didn't know where the rookies were going. So I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable about how the big board's going. I really thought I could player take my way to the top here. And I think I've learned now in hindsight that even if you do have great rookie player takes in the big board before the NFL draft, I do think you still want to be a little more structural, still want to be focused on the stacking, still want to be focused on that stuff. And I know I was lax on it because I thought my player takes were so sharp. And I think they were, but the stacking is really hurting those teams. So that's not good for me. Super flex, though, I think doing a little better. Yeah, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 advancing out of 44. That's okay. Yeah, could have been better. I really don't think I stacked up well enough pre-draft for sure. Spags doing math. Yes. Very, very high quality math here live on the show. Saquon, a-hole drafter, the draft you named. Oh, yeah. There's always an a-hole Saquon drafter out there, but Saquon, guys, down bad, I think, with him being out a few weeks because you really need him to be out there every game to have the ceiling you want. And there we go. Here's a regular season scoreboard. Out to everybody who's on here. I think Copper Prices was on top. No, Copper Prices was on top last week. Don't see any familiar names from the chat here, but shout out to Turn Me Up here. Currently the leader with a 346.06 spot. That looks good for him. Let's look at DraftKings. DraftKings teams I talked about. Think I built some really sick super teams on there. I think I also kind of felt the crush from not having a lot of the big spike week guys this week where Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, those guys were not big parts of my DraftKings portfolio, unfortunately. And I do think those guys are potential world beaters. Here's my highest scoring, or where's my highest scoring team? Are these all my teams? Okay, these are all my teams. Highest scoring DraftKings team. I think this one should be interesting. 356.62. Kirk Cousins, Jalen Warren. So this team is actually really interesting. So I have terrible running backs on this team. like even by my standards, I think the running backs are looking pretty shitty, as you can tell by Jalen Warren and Miles Sanders making the team, and not doing a whole lot at those positions. But because I have Puka, because I have Justin Jefferson, because I have Higgins, because I have Pickens here, and I also have Hawkinson, I have built like a really monster wide receiver room. And a few of them, I think, a lot of my teams are going to look like this one. So we have Burrow, Pickett, Kadarius Toney, Hyatt. These guys contributing nothing for me this week. Herbert looked like crap. Ridley didn't do much. Algier didn't do much. But we got some guys here that I think can contribute down the stretch, can look a little bit better. I didn't even realize Chase Brown actually had a carry for 2 yards. So Chase Brown putting up points. Feels good. Allen Robinson is a value here. This team, I think, is very live to do some damage with that high of a total after 2 weeks. Other ones on DraftKings, I think I should just open these in a new tab because that's kind of an annoying process. Other ones that look interesting. Actually, what's my worst team? Let's do it that way. I know people were curious about Pete's worst team when he was doing his portfolio review yesterday. What is my worst DraftKings team? Let's find out. 26% advance overall on DK and DK Millie, 34 out of 150. There you go. Looking pretty good. If you're at around 20%, you got to be feeling good. But even if you're underneath, like the average, of course, is going to be 16% of these main tournaments where only 2 advance. Don't sweat it. Like again, I advanced teams last year. I had under a 16% advance rate in an Underdog's final. Had just, I think, was exactly flat with the average on DraftKings. Advanced 2 there. So like, again, this is the part that I will say over and over again. It's fun to look at this stuff. I think especially because we've all been in this process for basically the first 9 months of the year. I want to do these streams, but I do also want to make sure that we're really clear here. Like, don't feel bad about yourself if it's going poorly. Don't feel too good about yourself if you're running good. That's just the ebbs and flows of a season overall. So my worst team: Jalen Hurts, Deuce Vaughn, Alexander Madison, Tank Dell. Tank Dell putting up 20? Is that just for this week? He didn't put up 20. He put up 20 this week? Fucking Tank Dell is a monster. Jesus. KJ Osborne, Rashid. So knowing the rooms that I usually draft, I am very surprised to see Tank, Osborne, Shaheed, and Josh Downs making my roster here. But it certainly makes sense why that's so bad. Jackson, AJ Brown has not contributed much useful yet. Of course, yelling at Jalen Hurts on the sidelines does not get you points, unfortunately. Rashad Penny can still get there at some point, but God, he really looked not as good as DeAndre Swift in that one game. And the opportunity, I think he needs to really get a lot more volume to get there. That's not going to happen. I somehow have Michael Carter on the team. Things that I'm looking forward to is getting Christian Watson back in the mix. That was a high draft capital guy for me that's giving me zeros. So the fact that I'm where I am without Christian Watson and without good running backs, I feel pretty strongly about my portfolio overall. Dobbins, of course, dead. Elijah Mitchell, a major part of my DraftKings portfolio and my Underdog portfolio. I need him to get better, but I think that's definitely, it's going to be a lot for me to have to dig out of. Our guy CLN said, type CLN in. How many does he have? Wow, CLN, definitely. Who are these? Like, are these 1 or 2 players unifying your team, CLN, or do you just have nice construction overall? Either way, though, that's the kind of start you're looking for. Just to start, of course, CLN mentions in the chat, but to have this many guys in the top 10,000, I think bodes pretty well for him. All right. And shout out to all you guys in the chat as well. Appreciate all you hanging out with me, of course. We'll be doing the stream every Tuesday moving forward. So please subscribe down below. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment if you're watching after the fact. I always reply to every comment. Always trying to make sure I am appreciating you guys for the time you spend here on Splash Play. So please help me out here and do the same. And of course, we did draft a lot of these teams on Underdog. So play some pick'ems on Underdog. Use promo code SPLASH. $100 deposit match on there. And they also will give you a mystery pick'em if you sign up for the first time. So go check that out. Let's look at drafters really fast. I could keep looking at DraftKings teams. I'll look at one more good DraftKings team. We've looked at the shitty one. We looked at one good one. What's one that's fun here? Just number 2. I don't know what's fun because you can't label anything on DraftKings. One way too to keep track of like how you're doing overall. If you're in the positive at this point, actually might be advancing more than I realized on DraftKings after their final scoring. If you're above your entry fee, you're basically advancing more than average. If you are a little bit beneath your entry fee, you're advancing a little bit under average or at average. So just one thing to keep in mind here that I've observed while watching the ticker for scoring. Daniel Jones, DeAndre Swift, Brian Rock. This team is loaded too. I guess I got some Puka. I guess I did get more Puka than I realized on DraftKings, which makes me feel good because I was a Puka believer over Tutu, and to not have a lot of him, one of those things that does kind of chafe my ass a little bit. Lots of single-digit scorers here, but the good news, no zeros. Even Schoonmaker got a touchdown, so this team feels okay. Jones, Swift, Robinson, Puka, Debo Samuel, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Darren Waller, Jahmyr Gibbs, who could have better weeks. I will say it now. I'm planting the flag. Fear Zonovan Knight. If you are a Detroit Lions backer, if you're a Jahmyr Gibbs backer, Zonovan Knight just got moved up to the 53-man roster because Montgomery's going to be out. I could see Zonovan Knight getting a lot of those touches and being really efficient with them, the real traditional running back touches. So just one thing I'm going to say out loud here. I know Craig Reynolds got some work after Montgomery went out. Just don't expect Gibbs to become Christian McCaffrey and get that workload. That's one thing I will say out loud because I've been thinking about it since I saw Zonovan Knight got called up. My weekly winners are trashed. Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't do any weekly winners, didn't do any eliminators, so I can't really speak to that. But it is a struggle. It is a struggle for sure. Everyone's highest score on DK. Brian's got a 353. CLN's got a 368, and then I have my 356. So that's the best I can contribute to you guys. Drafters. Let's look at drafters really fast. So I have one team that is currently top 337 overall. What did the team do that worked out well? Having Kyren Williams. That's a big part of it. Kyren Williams, James Cook, seems like those two guys are carrying the lion's share of work so far. A-Chain, Gainwell, hopefully those guys will have better weeks. Breece Hall as well will hopefully have better weeks than when he put up this week. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, Michael Pittman. So still a 0 RB build for me. I guess the only deviation I took was Josh Allen, Breece Hall, but still definitely have a lot of 0 RB kind of guys. Do I not have Diggs on this team? No, I don't have Diggs on this team. So I guess I have a naked Josh Allen besides Cook. So really speaks to the importance of the elite QB here. Obviously, you could thread the needle on drafters with having a less elite QB. But this one, again, performing really well so far. There's only 85,500 entries in drafters, but to be top 337 looks pretty good. Other teams, AR contributing. Justin Fields. Justin Fields, I got a lot in my drafters drafts. Only did, again, the 7 that you're seeing on screen here. So Fields, I thought was going to get me there. I'm a little worried about Justin Fields. He's going to have better matchups than he had in week 1 and week 2. But Fields, tough start, I think. He's going to make a lot of teams look bad if you were heavy in exposure to him. And I was on drafters. We got Tyreek, Metcalf, McLaurin, Gus Edwards here benefiting from the lack of J.K. Dobbins. Roshan Johnson gave us one usable week. This team is solid. I don't think this team is that bad, but obviously you're not seeing the outlier performance. Drafters, honestly, I have no clue how to read. This is my first year doing drafters, so I have no clue what to get excited about. Here's the top team overall. Cousins, Rashad White. So it looks like he went 0 RB2, or at least 0 RB-ish. Yeah, you got Kyren, got Brian Robinson, got Rashad White, and then Tyreek. So 0 RB, but does he have an elite QB? And he does now, and 2 mid-tier QBs. So we'll see if this holds on drafters, because I do want to tighten my strategy for drafters next year. And it feels to me like maybe elite QB gives you a better floor. And we did talk about elite QB, elite tight end being 2 that on drafters kind of made sense for a regular season format. But I think if you can just get the right 2 mid-tier QBs like Deshaun and Kirk, obviously Deshaun not looking great, Kirk carrying the load for now, but we know Deshaun's going to have spike weeks. I think same thing for like a Tua Kirk, Tua AR, 2 mid-tier guys, but not going too late. So we're not going quite down to Pickett Love tier. I think looks like a pretty good construction from at least what we're seeing on this first one. It's all guys that got Kyren. It seems like everybody up top. This guy got Kyren, Nico, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, right? So far, obviously. Kyren again. Fuck. So Kyren might drive a drafters team like pretty easily. Ooh, not having enough Kyren is really going to chafe my ass. I cannot say that enough. I am so bummed that me, Mr. Late running back, everything, Mr. Just take any running back and make it part of a volume portfolio. The fact that I'm under the field on Kyren or didn't even get 5% of him, given that he was undrafted, drives me nuts. I have a BBM4 team that's sitting just under 300 points through 2 weeks, but it is Eckler, Barkley, Jamal Williams, and Kareem Hunt on. Only James Cook healthy. That's tough, man. That's why I said throughout the draft process to me, where even if you are taking an early running back, you should take late running backs with that guy, and still get to 5, 6. But obviously, Zone Chubba here is having the worst possible rollout of that, even with a good volume of running backs. But you might have also luck box if you did go with that strategy where you take like an early running back, a McCaffrey or whatever, one of those other guys. you might have actually lucked into Kyren through that because you then have to take 5 more running backs later on or 4 more running backs. You take them later on in that process. That might have put you on some exposure there. But I really think that's one thing for me that I should have pounded my chest on more about is just no matter what happens at running back, no matter where you take your first guy, you got to just have 5 to 6 running backs. Like I just don't think hyper fragile in this NFL. And you guys might have seen the report too. The NFL, the actual NFL is filing some litigation against the NFLPA because they're reportedly telling running backs you might want to feign an injury to enhance your contract position, which is something we talked about in this stream. I think with that in mind, you just don't want to go into any team with like 4 running backs because if one of those guys goes down, like that's it. That's your whole team. So that'd be another lesson. Stacking more running backs, no matter where they're going. Just have a volume of running backs no matter what. The leagues here, 380 lineup has Kyren, Puka, Mike Evans. That looks pretty good. Way too much Cam Akers. The good news for Cam Akers is he might land somewhere that gives him a better opportunity. The bad news for Cam Akers is like they do not like him at all on the Rams. Like what they're saying publicly does not make it look good. So I think for you, Brandon, if you have or anybody out there has a lot of Cam Akers, you got to hope that a team really needs a rusher out there and goes and gets him. But I don't know. I don't know how this goes because you have a malcontent running back that is kind of okay, but is mostly a volume guy. I think teams know to avoid that. So we'll find out. But it does feel he's definitely not going back to the Rams. John McVay could not have been more clear about that. Could you win BBM with the team? I think you have to. I think it's I don't think you go and win BBM with just one player. I think you have to have a full team. I don't know what this question means, but yes, you do need a team. How many more weeks till Warren is a clear starter? Kind of think that may have happened a little bit at the second half of yesterday where he got the first touches there. Najee had one okay run in that second half. Najee looks like dust. So that's another guy, Jaylen Warren, who has not really put up big games yet. But if he does start to get more work, does start to actually punch some in the end zone, I think that the workload's starting to look a little bit better. And certainly the pass game work for Jaylen Warren has been very solid. So he's a guy that I think if you are heavy on him in your portfolio, as I am on both sides, I think he's one of the guys that will help bail out a 0-RB team. But he's not, I don't think he's going to be Kyren Williams. So that's the part that absolutely kind of sucks. Eagles is in 7th on drafters. Let's look at his team. He's got Miles Sanders, Brian Robinson, Jaylen Warren. So one of the teams, of course, he is a Najee Harris stumper, and he drafted Jaylen Warren on this team, and it's looking pretty good. Elite QB for him. He's also got Tua. Yeah, Tyreek. I mean, again, the thing that he did right was a vaguely 0-RB-ish team. ATN, obviously not 0-RB, but an anchor RB going that late feels 0-RB-ish. I think the guys that went very running back heavy, unless you got McCaffrey and McCaffrey stays healthy this whole year, I think for right now, what my takeaways would be is that you might be fucked if you drafted a lot of running backs and drafted them early. I just think that's going to be tough. And even like the Breece Hall guys, I know we have a lot of Breece Hall capers in the chat who love him. Just that usage in a tough matchup, I think worries you here where you're not going to get 20 points a week from him. And I think that was always the risk profile was coming off the injury, but also having Dalvin Cook in was that he just wasn't going to get that bell cow workload. And then you basically need him to be running 2 times for 100 yards like he did in week 1. And I don't think that's going to happen for Breece. So a lot of guys here that look pretty bad. Even that one run, he looked bad. Doesn't even have a second gear. He was negative points for most of the first half. And I could tell you this because I had a lot of Najee Harris is like, just because of 2-game slate on DraftKings, like the Sims are going to give you a lot of the other running backs along with the core running backs. And I had Najee Harris and I was watching him replay. Like, is he going to pass Nick Chubb? Is he going to pass Jamal Williams? Like, and I don't think he actually passed Nick Chubb yesterday. Fine. I forget his final score, but Najee looked awful. And that's the thing with running backs, man, is that he's 25 and Najee's never been great besides volume. But that's why we do what we do here, where it's all about looking past the volume. It's about looking at these advanced metrics and trying to define who are the elite players. And I would hope you guys could say, based on what we see, and again, very small sample size of 2 weeks, we have isolated the superior players. We've isolated the great spots. And when a few of them are coming through, and like, I could not be more proud of George Pickens with what he did yesterday. And I'm excited to see what comes from that process moving forward. So That, I think, wraps it up for me here on this first best ball review show. Of course, I will quickly ask you guys, subscribe down below. We're on that March 3K of subs, finally past 2,700. Next, we take down 2,800. Then we'll be basically knocking on the door of 3K. But please help me out here. Subscribe down below. Of course, follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at SplashPlayPod. And don't forget to check out my app, Probably. Go to probably.com. It is still free for now. We're going to get the paywall up, I think, before this NFL weekend starts. So get in there, check out some free bets, bet on baseball, bet some high probability bets on baseball. Certainly the highest probably score bets will be the ones I advocate the most for, but you can also find bets. Just find the best value for yourself at probably.com for any bets you want to take as well. We tell you what the top bet is. We tell you what the true probability is based on the top betting markets in the world. So check that out at probably.com. Any chats here? I also am going to add a chat component, a Q&A component to the Friday streams too. So something to look out for later in the week. But yeah, nothing too crazy here. So shout out to all you guys hanging out. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow for the Spags ranking. Strap in. It hopefully will not be a Titanic length venture tomorrow. We will rank every player tomorrow here on the channel based on the EPA numbers, based on the advanced analytics, all of that. And thank you guys for hanging out here, and good luck to you. And I can't wait for Thursday, guys. I need to play TFS again because I need to get that money back. Yesterday hurt. I don't get hurt a lot by losses, but fuck, that hurt yesterday. Chubb and Jamal. Single football, no ball tear down my eye. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Spags rankings. Enjoy your days. Good luck. Bye.